Right. So 5:01 p.m. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Thank you, everybody who is here. And I mentioned to a few of you before we went on record, but I just want to say it officially now. Thank you so much for electing me as chair of this board, and congratulations, Arthur, as being reelected as vice chair. I think we've got a really good thing working here as a board, so I'm glad to continue that on. So I just wanted to say that at the top of the agenda. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and call roll. We'll determine quorum, and then we'll take a look at the minutes.
Here.
Here. Present.
Here. Thank you so much, and good to see you, James. All right, so quorum having been determined, let's go ahead and review the minutes. Are there any amendments or modifications to the minutes from our June 6th, 2022 meeting? I'm assuming everybody's had a chance to review those. Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve the minutes.
Moved by Ms. Lyons.
I second it.
Seconded by Mr. Carney. Thank you so much. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Wonderful. The minutes are approved. They are signed off, and there you go, up front. Okay, so if there are any members of the public wishing to appear before the board this evening, please stand to be sworn in at this time.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. That's going to bring us to our first agenda item. Case number UDP HP 22013. It's a review and comment on a proposed new development at 300 West Broward. And Ms. Toothaker is joining us this evening, I believe, to present on this item. Let's go ahead and I don't really think we need to make disclosures because it's a review and comment. So, Ms. Toothaker, though, I do just want to address one thing before we kind of get into the meat and potatoes of this. As I understand it, an alternate plan was approved last night by the City Commission. So I'm wondering if it would be best to have this on a later agenda with the alternate plan before us for review and comment, so that we're not kind of doubling up on work and wasting anybody's time.
Well, good afternoon, Stephanie Toothaker on behalf of FTLAD, which is the developer of 300 West Broward. The City Commission approved the alternate plan, which has required 3 waivers from the downtown master plan, and that is what's being presented to you this evening.
That is, okay, wonderful. I just wanted to make sure
Yes.
that we weren't going to be doubling up on work at all. Okay, so with that being said, Ms. Toothaker, thanks for joining us, and
Okay.
the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So thank you I assumed that probably this board, because you serve on a board, you're interested in things that happen at other boards, including City Commission. So we're very pleased that the Commission approved this project last evening. It is a project that is in the downtown master plan area, and the downtown master plan is very prescriptive in its architectural requirements. And as a result of the alternate design, the project did need 3 waivers from the downtown master plan architecturally. It did not require waivers for anything else, not height, not density, parking, landscaping. All of those met the requirements of the downtown master plan. It was just for 3 elements related to height. I would also mention that that we voluntarily came to this board. It was not required. In fact, your staff report notes that that it's far enough away from the historic district. But given its proximity to the historic district, we thought it was important to share with this board so that you would have an opportunity to look at it. How do I bring it up, Estefania? I struggle with this every time of how to bring it up on the screen. Okay. Are you seeing that?
Yes.
There we go.
The-
Okay, so it is a thank you. My right arm is over here.
It works.
It is at 300 West Broward Boulevard. It is designed by ODA. The developer is, as I mentioned, is for FTLAD, but it's generally known as a JV partnership between Kushner and Aimco. It is in, as I mentioned, it's in the downtown master plan area. I'm showing it to you on the screen immediately to the south of Broward Boulevard at 300 West Broward Boulevard. And several years ago, when the city adopted the downtown master plan, you may remember that at one point the downtown master plan was more of a goals document. And many years ago, the city adopted the downtown master plan, and what came with that was maps that defined character areas in the master plan. And when the commission did that, they actually extended the downtown core, and you can see it here. I don't know, well, I guess you can't see my pointer, but you can see where the red on the right-hand side goes further west down Broward Boulevard. The city commission made the decision that they wanted to extend the downtown core into the western parts of Broward. And this is the project. And I'm going to stop here for a minute and just talk about why we needed waivers architecturally. So you can see this is actually a view looking west towards I-95 down Broward Boulevard, and the building would be on your left. And there are three things that required waivers from the downtown master plan. The master plan requires essentially a podium, and then it says if you're going to do towers, which everybody does, of course, if you're going to do towers, those towers cannot be closer than 60 feet apart from each other. So there has to be a minimum distance separation requirement of 60 feet between the two towers. And you can see here that the architectural design brings those towers together in a very unique way. And as they get closer together, that's what triggers the need for a waiver from the master plan, because it isn't just two towers that go straight up. And then as a result of the towers getting bigger and connecting at the top, it also needed a waiver from the minimum floor plate size. The master plan tells you you can't exceed a certain floor plate size, and obviously when the building starts connecting to itself at the higher levels, the floor plate got bigger and the towers got closer. The last waiver is for the size of the podium. The master plan tells you that you can do 9 stories on the podium, and we actually on the inside, although on the outside you can't tell, on the inside it has a 10th floor of parking. It has additional parking. So those were the 3 waivers that the commission approved last evening. This just shows you the ground floor. You can see Broward Boulevard on the top of your screen, and the entrance is along Newgate Avenue, which is on the eastern side of the building, and you go through the building for a drop off that's internal to the building. This is just another view of the building looking in a different direction, and of course this is looking east. So now when you get off I-95 and you start driving, east, you see a new sort of gateway entrance to the city that's, I think, far more beautiful than kind of the tire stores that we have today. So I think, we're excited about, and I think if you listen to Commissioner Glassman and the mayor made some nice comments about what this will do for the entrance as you enter our city. Just some closer up of the podium images. And it's got double high storefront for retail along the bottom and a lot of pedestrian connectivity. And this is the entrance that I mentioned that drives through the building. So you've got a nice paseo that goes through the bottom of the building. And just some more elements of that. And that's basically it. So we're very excited that we had the opportunity to present this to you this evening, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you so much. We always appreciate when anybody who may have any effect on a historic district or historic properties come before our board. We certainly appreciate the communication lines being open like that. So thank you for being here. Comment, questions from main board? Yes, Ms. Lyons.
Yeah, I'd like to ask you what the vote on the commission was.
It was 4-1.
4 in favor.
4 in favor.
And then I'd also like to ask you about the traffic on Broward. I mean, you're introducing a huge number of new vehicles onto Broward. And Broward is such a mess right now.
Mm-hmm. We did a full traffic study, and as part of that traffic analysis, there were some recommendations made for some improvements along Broward, some turn lane extensions and things of that sort. So those were all conditions of approval.
I have a real problem with the issue of traffic on Broward and also on Oakland and Las Olas. It's just more and more buildings are being built. More and more people are driving. It's more and more congested. I talked to one commissioner who indicated that there was a city plan to have 3 lanes of traffic go west on Broward in the morning toward the freeway, and 3 lanes of west go east on Broward in the evening, and that's no solution.
I'm not familiar with that. I do know that there was a discussion, has nothing to do obviously with why we're here, but I do know there was a discussion at the MPO level and with the DDA about one-way pairs on 3rd and Andrews. That has nothing to do with this project, but I'm not familiar with the discussion on Broward.
Well, I think it's a huge problem to introduce more congestion into the city. And I'm surprised by the commission vote because the people who are currently on the commission, they actually, indicated when they were running for the commission, including the mayor, that they were going to control building in this city. And it was going to be a kind of control building, and we're seeing buildings going up over and over again. And we don't have any say-so over those as this board. But since you've come, I am raising those issues because I think they're an enormous problem for the city. And the integrity of the city is slowly being chipped away at. And I really don't, I admire the architectural structure of this building. It's attractive. But can you build it someplace else? Can you build it someplace where it's not going to add to the congestion of the city or create this effect when you're in the historic district? I mean, is there,
Well,
are there
it's technically
options?
not in the historic district, just to be clear.
No, I know it's not in the historic district, but you could see it from the historic district.
Mm-hmm.
Is there some other plot of land that you can develop this piece of architecture on?
Well, this is the piece of property that my clients own. They own it, and it's an approved building at this point. It was approved last night, and I'm sensitive to your traffic discussion. I was born and raised here. I've lived here my whole life. I drive in the same traffic you do, but I will say that particularly in a post-pandemic world, people are moving here and they need somewhere to live. And
Well, they can move someplace else, not here. There's plenty of room in Florida. I'm sorry, I'm just voicing my
I understand.
opinion.
I understand.
Appreciate it. Mr. Marcus.
Yes, hi. I had a few just quick questions. How many square feet is in the building? Do you have any idea?
It's done by units, so it's 956 units.
Okay.
And it's 5,615 square feet of commercial, yes, at the ground levels, yes.
And is anything special happening at the top floor where it looks like there's double height windows?
Those are additional units, just has a different treatment along the top.
Oh, so they're penthouse units.
Yeah, and there's liner units, which is something that a lot of developers struggle
I'm
to
sorry,
provide.
what type of?
Liner units on the podium. So if you look at the ground level, the first, so one of the things that the master plan calls for is to shield your garage so it doesn't
Oh,
look like a
right,
garage.
yes.
And so there's treatment of liner units both on the north side and on the east side, so it really looks residential all around, which is
Right.
which is what the master plan encourages.
Then it blends in better with the neighborhood.
That's exactly right. Yes.
Thank you.
Are these going to be rental units or condo units?
This is proposed as a rental building.
Anybody else? Any comments, questions?
Just to follow up with that parking and traffic issue, how many parking units are in the building compared to the rental units?
It exceeds the parking requirement. Off the top of my head, I think it was 1,115. I don't quote me. I know it was more than what the code required.
And that's for residents, or how much is that for
It's
overflow
both.
for?
It's both. It's for residential and for the commercial.
So just, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
just to clarify, so the code says one space per unit?
The code calls for one space per unit, and this exceeds the one
This-
space per
I
unit.
understood.
It includes additional parking for the.
For guests and
Yes, I was
delivery and
right.
whatever?
1,105 parking spaces.
Oh, okay, there you go.
And required is 1,024 units.
Right, thank you.
I think it's a gorgeous building. I think it's absolutely a beautiful property.
Been really well received.
I mean, I think it's going to make a real statement. I echo some of the concerns of the impact, but I think that's a widespread concern in Fort Lauderdale as a city and in South Florida in general. It's a population boom. It's a problem, because our infrastructure just isn't set up to handle the number of people that are moving down here. How we remedy that, how we fix it, I'm not sure. Long term, but nonetheless, as far as this property is concerned, I think it's gorgeous. I think it's going to be great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Which does raise more questions about the density, because the Sailboat Bend district does have flooding and a want to say sewage concerns, you're bringing in a large number of units in a very small space that there never was before. I have concerns with that being in the community and not being properly addressed with the water from all this stuff going somewhere.
There are some proposed water and sewer improvements that come along with the building in addition to some traffic improvements.
Okay, so the developer is prepared to invest in those types of issues that will help.
There were some conditions of approval, yes, that were included, yes.
Okay. Did you actually meet with the Sailboat Bend Civic Association or the Sailboat Bend community?
We
at all?
did,
Because
we
it-
did a large number of public participation meetings, yes, and we sent notices to all of the adjacent neighborhood associations, yes.
Because in the past 2 years, I don't think that you ever came to the Sailboat Bend Civic Association.
We did public participation meetings to all of the neighboring, but we did it as one meeting and invited all of the associations to come.
You never met with the Civic Association in Sailboat Bend.
I didn't come directly to them, but we did send them notices of multiple public participation meetings that were not required by the code. We did it in an abundance of caution. We wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to meet with anybody that wanted to meet with us, and we made all of the information readily available.
Is there some kind of commitment from the developer for helping out the local community with commercial services that aid the local community? For example, there is no farmer's market or low-income food products available in the community. Would there be an interest in trying to get a farmer's market to come in one of the commercial spaces? Or
I'm sure it takes multiple years to build the project, and it
Yes,
still
of
needs
course.
to go through, obviously needs to go through the building department to receive permits, but if you want to, give me your information, I'm happy to connect you with the developer, of course. I can't speak to that. It's the first time I've ever been asked, so I don't know the answer.
because the commercial services in the building, it should be enhancing the local community. And if it's really just for the commercial aspect of it and not for the residents that have to kind of live in the community, it's kind of limited one.
I don't think there are any plans for what the commercial spaces are going to include. I will share, I made a presentation to the Museum of Discovery and Science, and they asked if there was maybe an opportunity to do something together, and the answer to that was, of course, yes. It's a little early to make those kinds of decisions, but I know that the developer would be happy to.
Anything else from the board?
When is construction slated
Mr.
to
Carney?
begin?
So the project, as I mentioned, still has to go through the building department with its construction drawings, and so I think the idea is that we'd like to break ground, if possible, first quarter of next year, if we can get construction drawings and building permits that quickly. It's kind of that's kind of aggressive, but they're already starting with the construction drawings.
Can you clarify again? It's a lease building, and how long will it remain a lease building, or do you know?
I'm not sure I understood your question. I
I
apologize.
said, you said it's a lease building, a rental building.
It's a rental building, yes.
Yes. How long will it remain so, or do you know?
As opposed to what, selling
As
condominiums?
opposed to selling the units,
I
conversion.
I don't have any idea. There's no discussion of doing a conversion.
All right. Well,
Just have a couple quick comments.
yeah, go ahead, Mr. Russell,
Yeah, no, I think it's aesthetically, architecturally, I believe hands down the nicest building I've ever seen downtown. It's beautiful. I also echo the comments from the board and my concern about, I'll just use the word congestion that could conceivably flow from this. The issue though, the one question I have specifically is where could we get the information pertaining to the water and sewer improvements that are going to be
Yeah.
done? Because that I would like to see, having known additional neighborhoods that have struggled with some of the sewer issues. It's scary. I live a mile west. It's concerning to think that there might be an overflow issue, things that might come from this density that, unless planned for, could be really catastrophic if not addressed in some way well ahead of when this starts happening. So is that information available to us, to the
Yes.
public? Okay. And where would we,
So on the city commission agenda
okay.
from last night, if you go to this item, which was, I don't remember which, it was one of the resolutions. If you go to this item and click on the backup, the water and sewer capacity letter is there.
Perfect. Okay.
along with the traffic statement, the architectural plans. I mean, the backup was hundreds and hundreds of pages long.
Understood.
With a report, with a resolution that had conditions of approval. So all of the information that you're looking for is there. It's readily available on the city's website.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I didn't see any real kind of investment or consideration for the green environment. So the landscaping, solar technology, wind technology, any of those things that are going to help reduce the impact to our environment.
So this does meet all of the codes related to the landscape architecture. And we have done wind studies as part of every project does, by the way. Every project goes through wind studies. And there were some changes that were made to the architecture as a result of the wind studies. So that's a normal part of the development of a site plan.
All right. Anything else? Thank you so much, Ms. Toothaker.
Thank you very much.
You as always. Thank you again for coming before the board. All right, that'll bring us to the next item on our agenda, case number UDP HP 22014, Certificate of Appropriateness for Major Alterations and New Construction of a two-story addition to a single-family residence at 816 Southwest 4 Place. Let's go ahead and do disclosures on this. We'll start down below. Mr. Bray, any disclosures?
None.
Okay, none. Ms. Rosa? Mr. Parker? Stop by or swung by, drove by? Okay. Mr. Marcus? None. I have none. Mr. Carney?
Nothing to disclose.
Ms. Lyons?
Drive by.
Drive by. Thank you so much. Trish, you want to go ahead and give us a staff report on this?
Sure. Good afternoon. I'm Tricia Logan, Principal Urban Planner. This property is located in the Sailboat Bend Historic District, and this is for a certificate of appropriateness for major alterations and new construction to add a two-story addition to a single-family residence and to change the roofing material on the main residence. This property was identified as a non-contributing structure within our most recent architectural resource survey. And the new addition is 2 stories and is to be placed along the rear of the main structure, but that's facing the river, the new river. This new addition will primarily use materials to match the existing house. And in this case, since it's a non-contributing property that's already had alterations and additions over time, we're not as concerned as with a contributing building as to differentiating between the old versus the new. There are a couple of items that don't necessarily meet our material and design guidelines. One is that the applicant has requested to use hardy board rather than actual board to match the existing siding. Hardy board isn't a material that is found within our material and design guidelines, so that's up to the board's consideration. The other item that doesn't completely meet our material and design guidelines is the proposal of using sliding glass doors along the new river frontage. Within our material and design guidelines, it does state that any horizontal sliding window or door can only be on rear or side elevations. And in this case, along the new river, it's considered visible from the right-of-way. It's considered a front elevation. The other item that partially meets the criterion is the roof. The actual slope of the roof exceeds what is allowable within the material and design guidelines. So again, this is up for the board's consideration. The actual slope that's proposed is a higher level than what we would normally allow. So with that, I'll read the staff summary and staff conclusion. Staff finds that the application for a COA for major alterations and new construction under case number UDP-HP 22014, located at 816 Southwest 4th Place, meets the criteria as outlined in section 472411 D3CI of the ULDR, meets the criteria as outlined in section 472411 D3CII of the ULDR, and partially meets the criteria as outlined in section 4717 of the ULDR, which is the material and design guidelines. The following conditions are outlined for the board's consideration if this application is to be approved. 1, all glass shall be clear with an option of a low E coating. 2, this property is located in an archaeologically significant zone, and a cultural resource assessment survey is required for the conditions outlined in the letter from the city's archaeological consultant to be included as part of that report. And then the third condition is this application is subject to the approval by building, zoning, and all ULDR requirements.
Thank you. Is the applicant or their representative here? I'm sorry. Hi. Were you sworn in earlier?
Not yet.
All right,
Raise
go
your
ahead and
right
raise your right
hand.
hand, please.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Great. Go ahead and please put your name and your address on the record for us and tell us who you're here on behalf of.
Austin Fox, 501 East Los Olas Boulevard, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 33301.
And are you, you're the applicant here on this?
The applicant.
Gotcha, okay.
Presenting my clients, Patricia and her husband.
Okay, wonderful. Hi. All right, Mr. Fox, you have 15 minutes to make your presentation.
All right, guys. We're here today to discuss my client's residence. We were given this project an approach and a unique opportunity. Most of the times we're seeing now is new development, knocking down the old, bringing in the new, and we've explored all options with our clients. When we first got approached with this project, it's built in the 1950s. There are some issues. The roofs are having some compromised maintenance problems. The floors are not straight. And to give you a background on my client, Patricia, she's a filmmaker, and her husband's a retired doctor with Parkinson's. So for them, this is not about the new. This is about passing it down to their kids, grandkids, and so forth. So we're going to stick with what we want, what's existing here, and basically improve it, or try to, which has created a challenge. Now we're in the historic board. How do we make this fit with the new and the old, and how do we come together? So after exploring all options, knocking it down, keeping it, there's a need for more space. There's a need for repairing the existing, and that's what we came with the solution here. My clients want to keep the historic integrity of the front while improving the back of the house. They are willing to be cooperative in any sense. They want to keep that historic essence, which has brought us here today. They're from up north. They live part-time down here, so the style may not be something we're normally seeing, but for them, they love it. It's their end-all home. They don't want to sell it. They want to live here and pass it on down. So I leave the board open for you guys. Any questions, concerns, and any feedback as well.
All right, so I'm going to ask you to hold on for 2 seconds. Thank you so much. I'm going to open it up to the public if there are any members of the public who wish to be heard on this item. Seeing none. All right, we'll go ahead and close public comment, and we will now turn to the board for any comments, questions, concerns regarding this item. We'll start, I guess, Ms. Lyons, I'll go to you first. Do you have any?
Nothing right now.
Nothing right now? Okay, Mr. Carney? Nothing? Mr. Parker? I'm saving you, Mr. Marcus. I know. Mr. Rosa or Mr. Bray, any questions or comments at this time?
Yeah, I think the sliding glass doors, the city really needs to decide what is the front side, because there can't, to me, be multiple front sides to your home. And so if traditionally the street side is the front side, that's what they need to choose. I mean, there's multiple properties that have 3 and 4 sides of their property that are surrounded by the public viewing. So there has to be a decision on what is the front side of the property. And so I don't think that that should be by the river side in this case, and you're having 2 fronts, or being forced to have 2 fronts. I do have a concern with the clear glass and the low E restrictions that the city consistently puts on homes. And it's probably because we live in the 21st century. And we really need to be thinking about the efficiency of our homes and consider that with the light coming through. So allowing tinting, I think, is helpful. And I also think that because of our own health, that we need to consider, like, skin cancer. You have clear windows, you're going to have more likely problems with your health. So there's multiple reasons why we have to think about the technology that we have today and how it applies to our lives today. We don't live in the 19th century.
Thank you, Mr. Bray. Mr. Rosa, anything?
I'm trying to go through the application. I'm usually the board member that tries to find a way where if there's something in the Sailboat Bend Historic District that we can look to give some partial and different, to allow some flexibility in terms of whether something's codified strictly or whether there's some way to look at it to perceive maybe with what your clients want here to see if there's a way to work through it. And I'm doing that through the application as we're talking. I mean, are there particulars here for certainly the items in the staff report that don't meet the criteria to where you've discussed with your client that are musts that they have to have? Because I'm trying to determine with some of these items, like on sliding glass, I don't think there's ever been a lot of deviation from the code here, where on the front-facing elevation that we've really moved from that. And this would be a staff question. Tricia, is it such that it's the sliding glass itself, the door, the mechanics of the door, or is it more the dimensions of the way that the door is shaped? For instance, if these were fixed panels, would this be meeting the criteria, or is it the fact that it's a door? What is stopping us from saying it's something that is meeting the criteria of the sailboat bend design guidelines?
Yeah, in other scenarios, it's been fixed or French doors that have been approved on these elevations rather than sliders. It's something that's in the material and design guidelines, and those are for the consideration of the board. So there's, trying to think of one scenario where there might have been some flexibility on an addition. I think there might have been one case where it was an addition where the slider was allowed in that scenario.
Okay. Because going through the report, I mean, there's certain things that we've really avoided bending on ever. For example, the fence, it's come up on numerous occasions. I mean, countless really, where it's a pretty strict interpretation of what the fence is supposed to be doing. I think where we've had some flexibility in the past is with the openings within the fence. I think there's been some exception there in the past. But I'll toss it back to the board as I continue to digest this to see if there's something there. But I think on the doors themselves, which seem to be a dominant part of the facade here, if there's a way to move around that in terms of going through what we could have as a discussion with the board once we close it, if there's a way to make this work without having the applicant, have to reconsider here with the glass itself as sliding glass particularly. I've always felt personally that it's something that should be amended and adjusted and updated because so many people want to use sliding glass these days, but we're not there at this point with that particular material.
Thank you. Mr. Marcus?
Hi. Am I on? Yes. I just said I do have a few questions. With the doors, is there an appreciable cost differential between the sliding doors and the swing doors?
Nothing substantial. It's more a preference. If this is a major concern, I can bring it back to my clients. The main concern here for them is the additional space. So a discussion between sliding glass doors or French doors, I don't think will make or break their project.
And what do you mean by the additional space?
Because we're going to be expanding the house as well. We're adding on to it,
I
square
think it's
footage
just
wise.
the additional space they'd be adding, they'd be building.
Oh, okay.
That's
okay.
their main goal here. So if it's a question versus sliding versus French,
Right.
I'm sure they'll be fine with that.
Well, then I suggest we don't belabor that point.
And I wanted to add something that Richard started earlier about front doors. In many cities, I lived in Miami Beach for many years, and there's many houses there with two front doors. One front elevation facing the water, the other front facing the street. A lot of them were designed that way, but I think there's a third alternative here when I guess the city, if they ever look at what is to be. Because I agree that there should be more of a definitive take so that architects and everyone else have a clearer understanding of how to move forward. I actually like the slope on the roof. I think it works very well. I think it gives a very nice mid-century look, a la ski lodge to the house, and it won't look like everything else on the street. That's basically it. As to the doors, my preference is usually towards swing doors because it just looks more, I guess, traditional, but this is not a traditional house, so I understand. So I would really leave it to the discretion of the architect.
Thank you.
So, just going through the items here that or of concern, I guess is the best way to put it. The use of hardy board, I mean, I don't see an issue with it based on the application personally because it mimics the existing material so closely. And I think that it's in this regard more environmentally sound in all aspects of the word, as a material, longevity. I just think it makes sense for today's world. So in that regard, that I personally find no issue with that.
I just wonder if we, excuse me for interrupting,
No,
but
please.
if we could ask Tricia what the reason is for the hardy board.
It's just not a listed.
Not
It's just
allowed.
not a listed material. It's like they give you 5 choices. Pick one from the 5, and if it's not there,
Right.
well, it's not there. But again, these are guidelines, so we try to
Right.
use them, accordingly while giving some, credence to them as well. So I think the hardy board doesn't seem to be an issue for the board, and quite frankly, I wouldn't find it to be a concern at all. I also like the slope of the roof. I think it looks nice. I think that it's definitely. Arthur, I think you hit the one issue that I had with it on the head, which is that it's not going to look like anything else in the area. And yet I don't think that it's so profound that it makes it almost stick out like a sore thumb, right? I think that it's going to look really well in that neighborhood. The doors, however, like Mr. Rosa said, I mean, it's one of those things where I'm not sure that we have much leeway here because there's such a distinction between a slider and a French door. It's not like we're talking about a material that mimics something else. It's really about the mechanical aspects of it and that traditional, look to keep it in line. I love the idea of that much glass on that exposure though, and I don't want to take that away, but it sounds that the applicant doesn't have an issue with French doors as opposed to the sliders. So in my opinion, we should just make that the condition of approval because it then would fit within the guidelines, before us. The applicant has no issue with it, and let's not, go back and forth on a needless point. So that's my recommendation for anyone. Are there any other comments or questions otherwise for anyone who would make the motion? Those would be my points. Hearing no other comments, I would certainly entertain a motion at this time. And if you haven't figured it out by now, that means I need somebody to make a motion. Anybody. Well, not anybody. It has to be somebody on the
I'll
board.
move to approve. I'll make a motion to approve the resolution for certificate of appropriateness for major alterations under case number UDP HP 220014 located at 816 Southwest Forest Place based on the following findings of fact as outlined in the staff memorandum. And I think here is where we're going to need a little bit of help in terms of the conditional approval being based on a French door rather than are we limiting it to a French door or anything else would be acceptable under the sailboat design
I think
guideline?
you're making the motion,
Right.
So it's whatever you want. But
No, I follow. I mean,
I
is
think-
that something that you want to just check in with your clients on before we make this motion as a limited option?
If the sliding glass doors could be approved, let's go with them. If it's going to kill the project, then we'll live with the French doors.
Right, I was more so getting at the fact that if we want to limit to a French door, then it's a French door once we make the motion, or if there's something under the guide. I'll make it this way.
I think you'll just.
Yeah.
You
So
got it.
I'll start that over. I'm going to make the approval with a resolution under the case number provided, with everything that's been set forth in the application being approved with the exception of the sliding glass door, and leaving that open solely to being a French door or an equivalent material that's approved in the sailboat bend design guideline.
So that would include fixed panels.
That would include
yeah,
fixed panels.
Correct. Sherry, do you want to read a resolution or yeah?
It includes all the conditions in the staff report, including the glass and all that.
Well, you know what? If we want to go one by one, my position is I echo what Richard says, and we can come back to making a more concise motion. I do believe if someone wants to tint the glass, especially considering we're at a position here where this is facing the New River, I'm not in opposition to that. I would make that part of my motion as well as approve the Hardy board. So I think we should go line by line here because there's some weaving to do.
Just for clarification, in the code, it says that you're allowed to tint it. It just says it has to be non-reflective tint. So there's a distinction there. So
Okay.
I don't want anyone to think that it's prohibited completely.
Well, no, but I think that what Mr. Rosa is getting at, and I appreciate that clarification. I think what Mr. Rosa is getting at is that in the staff report, it specifies one of the conditions being that all glass must be clear with the option of Lowy. And I think what Mr. Rosa's motion is containing is that it's
Not
the
limited. to that.
determination of the applicant whether they like it to be clear or tinted. Of course, it could be non-reflective, must be non-reflective per code, but with an option of Lowy.
That's correct.
Okay.
And just to clarify, low E is indicating that they do have the option to have an energy efficient window.
Sure.
It's not,
I think it was more so what the chair had just mentioned in regards to the fact that it's clear or
It says clear,
not.
and it's just
just leaving a tint option.
within our design guidelines for citywide for historic preservation, it does specify that clear glass is preferred. That's something that's industry-wide within historic preservation.
Okay. Well, I guess where this is unique, and we don't face this all the time, and we'll come back to the motion, is while we're typically concerned with right-of-way as a primary concern, this is on the side of the river, which is an equally visible, certainly visible area. In this case, given that, I would be okay going back to what the chair had mentioned in terms of there being something other than clear glass. I would be okay with that. I think of it this way. If there isn't a shutter over this or some covering, someone on the river is staring directly into your home. And if there's a way to create a more opaque effect to that other than a covering, and there's some distinction between preference and mandate, I would err on the side of preference and make that the homeowner's choice as to what material to install at that point.
So that is the basis for your motion. Is
Correct.
It's within the purview of the applicant whether or not to use clear or tinted glass.
Correct.
Okay.
Where we're deviating,
I'm assuming no other issue with the archaeologically significant zone.
None.
requirements, and no other, obviously, no objection to them needing to, be subject to approval of building zoning and all other UL.
no, accepted. And the other one to distinguish is the hardy board being something that we're going to accept and allow.
Correct.
So just for clarification, so we don't have to come back here later, non-reflective tin, correct? That's okay.
Correct.
All right, just making sure. May I read the resolution?
Please.
Okay. A resolution of the Historic Preservation Board of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, approving a certificate of appropriateness for a new construction for a two-story addition to a single-family residence, and approving a certificate of appropriateness for a major alteration for the replacement of asphalt shingles on the roof of the existing main house with a standing seam metal roof for the property located at 816 Southwest 4th Place, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, case number UDP HP 22014.
220014, I believe. Am I correct?
I have it wrong in my resolution? I have HP 22014.
HP 22014.
Yes, that's what I have.
I'm
You
looking
have
at
a different-
Right.
on the top, it's listed 014, and then in the board action or proposed board action of the staff report, it's 220014. Can we just get clarification on that?
It should be 22014.
Okay, great. Just want to make sure. Perfect.
Sorry about that.
You had it right. Trish got another one wrong. There it is. All right, yeah. Okay, motion having been made on the resolution as read by the city attorney. Is there a second on the motion?
Seconded.
Seconded by Mr. Bray. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Wonderful. The item carries as amended. Thank you, and congratulations. All right. That will bring us to the next item on our agenda. Case number UDP HP 22015, Certificate of Appropriateness for Major Alterations at 916 Southwest 2 Street. Yes, okay. And with that, let's go ahead with disclosures. Mr. Bragg, any disclosures to make on this? No. Thank you. Mr. Rosa? Drive-by. Mr. Parker, any disclosures? Drive-by. Mr. Marcus, none. I have none.
No disclosures.
None by Mr. Carney. Ms. Lyons?
Drive-by.
Drive-by for Ms. Lyons. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and hear the staff report on this one. Trish?
Good afternoon, Tricia Logan, Principal Urban Planner. This is a certificate of appropriateness for major alteration for the installation of a 4-foot-high horizontal plank wood fence in the front yard. This property is a contributing property in the Sailboat Bend Historic District and was built in 1926. The request is to replace the existing fence, which is a 3-foot-high solid fence, with the 4-foot-high horizontal plank fence. And the applicant did provide an example of the type of fencing that they would like to use, which was found elsewhere within the Sailboat Bend Historic District and was previously approved by the board, and that's on the last page of your board packets. Within our material and design guidelines, there is a limitation of a 3-foot-high fence, and it does require 30% visibility, and that's in our design guidelines.
We are well
we
aware of that
all-
aspect of
all
these design guidelines.
Talked about,
The fence.
talked
the
about
fence.
this.
Damn fences.
So here's another fence for your consideration.
Right. We need to have like a coffee table book for this board of all the fence applications that come before us.
So with that, I'll read the summary conclusion.
Please.
In accordance with sections 472411 D3CI and 472411 D3CII of the ULDR, staff finds the application for a certificate of appropriateness for major alterations under case number UDP-HP 22015, located at 916 Southwest 2nd Street, does not meet the criteria as outlined in section 472411 D3CI of the ULDR, does not meet the criteria as outlined in section 472411 D3CII of the ULDR, and partially meets the criteria as outlined in section 4717 of the ULDR. And the only condition proposed for the board's consideration is that this application is subject to the approval by building, zoning, and all ULDR requirements, including landscaping.
Thank you. Is an applicant or their representative present to address the board on this item?
I don't think they're here.
They're not. Okay. Any members of the public wish to be heard on this item? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment. All right. So we'll bring it to the board for comments, conversation, thoughts, and I'm going to kick it off. We have approved what they are asking for previously. There is we have repeatedly expressed our dismay with the current guidelines and have made recommendations to the commission to address that. I see no reason for us to deny this application based on what it is they are requesting. They are not requesting anything that is not already in use in the neighborhood, nothing that this board has not previously approved, and I would fully be in favor of approving the application, just putting that out there. With that being said, any other members of the board wish to be heard on this? Let's try to not belabor well-known and previously made points I might suggest to this board. Ms. Lyons.
Is the image we're looking at 3 feet or 4 feet, the fence?
That's a 3-foot fence.
That's the 3-foot fence.
You're saying this one at the last page?
The last
No.
page is
Wait, Ms. Lyons, are you referring to the one on the screen
I'm
currently?
referring to the one on the screen, and I'm referring to the one with bushes on either side of it at the very front of the image.
Right.
That's the 3 foot.
Is that 3 foot or
That's
4
what
foot?
is 3 foot.
So that's already there.
It's already there.
Okay. I don't see how, I agree with you completely, but I don't see how making that 4 feet is going to give them any more privacy. I mean, the driveway's wide open. But,
Not our decision.
I mean, it's just illogical, but in any way.
Tricia, I have a quick question, but in terms of heights, this picture at the back of our report, is this a 4-foot high fence?
That is 4 feet.
So that's what they're proposing,
Yes.
with the horizontal
Planks.
boards, okay. Are
And
they
I
planning to?
remember this project coming before us, and when we approved this fence, the one that you're talking about.
Yeah, I
right?
do too.
I remember the conversation on that one.
They're not going
Are
to
they-
wrap it, they're not going to wrap this fence around, are they? I mean, it's limited to the fence as it exists now, except in terms of raising its height. Is that correct?
They will be wrapping it around the front. of
How?
If you
the-
look,
They show it on
Second
the,
to last page of
Yeah.
the packet shows the location
Right.
of the fencing. They'll have gates at the driveways.
Oh, I see. I still don't see how that's giving them any protection. But
I had one other question. Are they planning to put any landscaping in front of the fence?
I believe that they're planning to keep the landscaping that's already there. in front, which is the
One
Clusia,
tree?
the Clusia hedge, which is along the
Oh,
street.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at this picture here, I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
I do have a comment about
Mr.
the
Bray.
visibility issue, because whether it's a 3-foot fence, 4-foot fence, or 6-foot fence, even if it's wood, if someone wants to put plant material in front of it, you're still gonna not see the house. So it seems like it's a silly point that you're trying to make of keeping it 3 feet so you can see the house. So the other thing is that we do not live in the 19th century. We live today, and there are more concerns with safety, security, and privacy in our homes than there were in the 19th century. So I think that we should allow the owner to move forward with their plans so that they feel more secure and safe in their home, in their comfortable setting.
Thank you, Mr. Bray. Any other comments, concerns, questions, motions? Anybody have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve. I'm looking for the wording, though.
You could just say motion to approve case number UDP HP 22015, inclusive of all staff conditions and adopting the findings of fact in the staff report, or you can make your own findings of fact.
I agree with what you said.
Yeah, it can't be the findings of fact in the staff report, though, because they say that the application doesn't meet, so it would have to be the findings of fact as discussed on the record. Is that your motion, Mr. Mark?
Yes, that's my motion.
So it's a motion to approve.
Okay.
Just want to, let me just read that back to you, Mr. Marcus. So it's a motion to approve the resolution for a certificate of appropriateness for major alterations under case number UDP HP 21015 located at 916 Southwest 2nd Street, based on the findings of fact as discussed by this board relating to the fence, and also adopting the condition that the application be subject to the approval by building, zoning, and all other ULDR requirements, including landscaping. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Perfect. You made that very eloquently, Mr. Marcus. I appreciate that. Is there actually, I'm sorry, Sherry, do you want to go ahead and read the resolution?
Did you want a second first, or?
No, I want to hear the
Okay.
resolution,
All right.
then we'll determine whether the motion to adopt the resolution you're about to read is going to
Okay.
be seconded.
Okay, a resolution of the Historic Preservation Board of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, approving a certificate of appropriateness for a major alteration for the installation of a 4-foot-high horizontal plank wood fence in the front yard of the property located at 916 Southwest 2nd Street, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, case number UDP HP 22015.
The motion having been made, as stated by Mr. Marcus, to adopt the resolution is read by the city attorney. Is there a second to the motion?
Seconded.
Seconded by Mr. Bray. Thank you so much. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Congratulations to the applicant. All right, so that brings us to, that's it. All right, so that's going to bring us to communication to the city commission. I don't believe we have any for tonight. Any updates on any of our prior communications?
There should be an update on the Castro Convertibles building.
Last night, the Castro Convertibles was scheduled for the city commission. However, the property owner did request a deferral.
There is a property owner then.
Ms. Toothaker is here. She represents the property owner, so.
Pardon?
Ms. Toothaker is here. She represents the property
Oh,
owner.
okay.
Yay.
There is a deferral on the item, I
Thank you.
believe, till September. And then we also had an item that came before the commission regarding the changes to the code as
Yeah.
it pertains to notice. So the commission agrees with you. So we're going to be sending it to the Planning and Zoning Board.
Wonderful. Good. I'm glad. We're making progress. This board is addressing issues and making progress. It's good.
Ms. Toothaker, how did the owner finally become aware of what was happening?
So I had a number of, Stephanie Toothaker on behalf of the owner of the building, which is now operated as a Ferguson's. I was reading the agenda because I had a number of items on last night, including the project that I just presented. And I had done due diligence for the owner when he purchased the property it's probably been 2 years ago now. And I also bought all my outdoor kitchen equipment there, and I recognized the address. And I called him. I happened to still have his number. I called him and I said, "Are you aware that your property is being designated historic?" And he, his head split open and things started coming. He had not received
He
notice.
had no idea?
He had no idea.
He didn't even see the notice on the property?
No, he had no idea. Well, remember, Ferguson's was shut down during COVID. So apparently what happened was.
But this was not during COVID.
No, but the notice, he never
Oh.
received the notice, but he's, because the city says they sent notice, I believe that they probably did. But he had not received it, so his thought was maybe it came in during the COVID because we had a clerk picking up mail but he found out about the city's proposal to designate it yesterday around 3:30 when I
Oh,
called
my
him.
God.
Yeah.
Because it's actually been the last 3 months.
I didn't even catch it on this agenda.
Yeah.
I caught it yesterday because I recognized the address.
Well, this is a great example of why the suggestions that we sent to the board are going to be moving forward, and that's going to be very helpful. So good. I'm glad he's now aware and can be very excited.
So
about
we're going to meet with Trish, and we spoke to Commissioner Glassman, who also loves the building, and
Yeah.
we'll figure out something related to that.
Great.
I might mention, since I'm here, that I also represent Broward Health, who owns the Wells Fargo building, which is another building you discussed. We're also meeting with Trish about that. That was already in. You may know this, but an application had already been submitted to the city to build a medical campus there. So
Which building are you?
Wells Fargo building on 17th
Oh,
Street.
the bank on South Andrews.
Yes. So over the summer, Trish and I are going to be spending a lot of time together.
Great.
She,
So is there a
she looks
chance,
thrilled, Steph.
is there a chance to save that building?
It's something that we need to discuss. Obviously, when Broward Health purchased it, it wasn't their intention to leave it as a Wells Fargo bank.
course.
So,
Right.
but we understand the importance of the waves. We read all the reports, and so we'll come back to you on that one as well.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for the update too.
Thank you.
Any update? So I guess, yeah, let's talk about the Pier 66 update that's on the agenda.
That is also Ms. Toothaker.
Oh, hi. Well, welcome back.
Hi.
Good to see you. It's been a while. So what's the update?
So, Stephanie Toothaker on behalf of Tavistock Pier 66, and my client is here. They're sitting in the back over there, Chris Gandolfo, Andrea Reba,
Welcome.
And I had picked up several discussions that you all had. I think one of them might have even been here when I was here on Marina Lofts. That there were just questions going on about the pier. So my client and I proactively reached out to the city, reached out to Trish, and said we'd be happy to provide an update because I've heard the questions come up, and I know that you're very interested, as we all are. I grew up here in Fort Lauderdale. I've driven by that building my whole life. So the building is, I don't know how familiar you are with the original approval of the Pier 66 project, which included preservation of the pier tower, which we're all very familiar with, and I think that's the only thing you really care about. So, as part of the overall improvement to the property, included demolition of some of the older buildings that were not historic. In fact, the tower is not designated historic, which I think a lot of people believe that it is, but it's not. So we proactively approached the city and said we would like to designate the tower historic, and we will commit to designating the tower historic at the end of construction. So we worked very closely with Trish, and thank you to Trish, on making improvements to the tower. The tower had sustained a good deal of damage in one of the hurricanes. The roof actually lifted off, water went down the tower, and there was a lot of damage inside the tower itself. So we hired a historical architect that specializes in preserving historical structures, and we worked very closely with him and with the city on the overall improvements that will be made to that building and to preserve the historical elements of the building. And the developers agreement that we signed, that Tavistock signed with the city, self-imposes it was our offer to, at the end of construction, either 5 years from the execution of the developer's agreement or upon the city's issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the tower with the new hotel that is being built, the Tavistock will come back to this board and request a historic designation of the tower. So that's just a general update. There was, during some of the COVID shutdowns, the site did unfortunately kick off its construction right before COVID hit. So there were some times where construction was not happening there or anywhere else. And but it's back online, and there's a lot happening on the site, and the tower is protected. And
So let me ask you. I'm sorry to cut you off, Ms.
Deadline.
Toothaker. Quick question for you. So the one thing that piqued my interest the first time I heard about it was within 5 years. That's a broad range and a long time. What is going to designate when within 5 years we
The,
can.
the tower would be designated, well, assuming this board approves it, which
Sure.
I would hope they would. The tower itself would be designated historic 5 years from the date of the approval of.
So not within 5 years, but it would be 5 years from the date.
Well, it would seek designation within 5 years. So it would
So-
file an application for designation within 5 years.
Understood. So
or-
that at the 5 year mark, it gets designated.
Yeah, 5 years.
I
So
understand.
that deadline is September of 2023. So we're coming up on it in the next year.
Gotcha.
But the construction is on track.
Great.
And we have every reason to believe that it will be done in time to be able to, to meet those deadlines.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for the update. Any questions for Ms. Toothaker?
Yeah, I do.
Arthur?
My question was, gosh, I'm sorry. I have heard over the year or two that the project's been going, that there are some changes to the existing architecture. And I don't know if you're bringing it back to the original, like the handrails, but are there any changes to
Oh, yes.
the existing facade?
There are. Not to the facade. The facade is being restored. The main
Well,
change.
but when you say restored, what do you mean?
It'll be, it needs to be painted, it needs to be.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so no significant changes. I think the change that you're asking about and the one significant request that we had, that we worked very closely with Trish on, I don't know if you had ever stayed in one of the hotel rooms that was inside the tower. So this is a little known fact, but if you stayed in one of the hotel rooms that was inside the tower and took your chair, your little, outdoor chair, and sat down, you couldn't see out because the balconies were made of concrete. And they were covered in Chattahoochee. And so obviously as part of a modern development and bringing it up to, the splendor that it deserves, we had requested an opportunity to make a portion of those balconies glass so that if you're staying in one of the hotel rooms, you can actually enjoy the views that you're meant to enjoy. That was really the biggest change, and we worked really closely with the city on, and Commissioner Glassman and Trish, on preserving, rebuilding a portion of the balcony will come back, will be replaced as it was Chattahoochee essentially. So it will come back, but so that if you're in a sitting position, you can still see out.
Right. Was the Chattahoochee original to the building?
Not really. It had actually been added over time. There's actually been a lot of changes to the building over time, and some of the things that you might have come to just recognize actually were not original to the building.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. And a study has been done of all of that. We've got experts that have done a complete analysis and that have a full report and have been keeping track of everything that's being done. And so, when the time comes for them to appear before this board, I think you'll be very pleased.
Great. Thank you so much. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no other items on our agenda for this evening, unless there's anything else that any members of the board wish to address, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I do have a subject that comes up repeatedly, it seems like, and one of the ones is a result of Stephanie Toothaker with tonight's project, they're building, as well as like the police station. It seems like we need to really review the historic districts in the city, because that Broward corridor seems to repeatedly being discussed by the city of it being the gateway to the city, and it is going to be developed, or it is going to have more projects that come before us. So there has to be a further discussion of how these H1 district is impacted, as well as the Sailboat Bend district that's impacted by these developments. So we need to review where the boundaries are and how those are going to be affected by these planned development that's going on. I don't know what the avenue is to do that, but if it's adjusting the boundaries or how we're going to review them.
Wouldn't that be a better seen by the Planning and Zoning Board?
Possibly.
But is that making a recommendation to them, a review in the historic districts?
I'm just,
Because it is a zoning issue that keeps coming up. This building, to me, is really disproportionate to the historic neighborhoods. Beautiful building, I love it, but
Sure.
again, as she pointed out, it was probably placed in the wrong position for the rest of the historic neighborhood that it's impacting. It should have been a smaller building, but it is. And they're trying to make that corridor with the city plans, make the city come alive to the rest of the world, I guess, in their opinion. So we do need to review it, I think, and really consider like what are the boundaries of the historic districts and how they're impacted with these rules and guidelines that we've set.
So the boundaries of the historic districts are set. I mean, those are,
But we can review them and change them. This board can change them.
well, we can certainly review them. I mean, I don't think that we can change them. I think we can make a recommendation to the commission to change them. Am I wrong on that?
Yeah, what are the options?
So changing the boundaries, that would require a code amendment. So code amendments go before the planning and zoning board, and then they go to the commission. However, recently, I guess within the last few years, there was an attempt to change the boundaries of the Sailboat Bend district, and that failed. So I'm not quite sure if you wanted to go down that line again, but, we could
Was it
start
to
that
ex-
again, but that
Was it to
failed.
expand or diminish?
It was to diminish certain parts of the district, yeah.
Well, and the districts have changed over the years, so that's not necessarily a restriction on what we can do as a recommendation from this board.
We can make recommendations. I'm with you 100%.
Right.
But we can't change them.
We can't change
We
it.
can't unilaterally change them. We can make recommendations.
Well, maybe Trish, you can chime in here, because I thought that was one of the things that this board actually has the ability to do.
It's a code amendment. I'm the lawyer, so I'll tell you, it's a code amendment. So it goes through the planning and zoning board, then to the city commission. This board can't make changes to the code.
Well, it'd be a recommendation from this board as far as an amendment to the existing historic district.
But again, there would have to be a real basis for that, and there were several meetings regarding that. So it's not like it can be changed, just like there has to be a real basis to do that.
So I think that to the extent of Mr. Bray's, concern, or excuse me, to address Mr. Bray's concern, not to the extent, sorry, it's been a long day. I think that reviewing the district boundaries, I think we all can do, by reviewing the materials available to this board through the city's website and resources, and then, try to take a look as a board if this is something that we think needs to be addressed as opposed to on a case-by-case basis. This might be a situation where for now it's something to kind of put on your radar and keep in mind, and as we see more of these projects come up, start thinking about whether or not that type of a recommendation needs to be made. But I would maybe caution against, jumping the gun on something like that just because of the widespread, well, let me try to put this differently. Based on the extent of great concern that many members of the Fort Lauderdale community have when we try to do anything in regards to the historic districts. We saw that with the Sailboat Bend district recommendations last time. And this board was pretty much in favor of modifying that. And I think that there was a big pushback from the community. I think we had no, let me rephrase that. I think you had an hours-long meeting, Arthur, if I'm not mistaken. You led that one.
Yes,
I happened to be conveniently absent. I was out of town, but
I think a lot of the pushback was we got caught in the middle of the politics.
right, and that's yeah.
So that wasn't a good place to be.
So I think that to the extent that we can certainly review them, and see where they actually lie. I don't think that that's a bad suggestion for members of this board to become, refamiliarized with or better familiarized with those boundaries. But to the extent that we should maybe explore any recommendations being made to planning and zoning or the commission, I think we need to wait to see if it actually is an issue as opposed to just something that we address on a, case by case basis.
The other part of this, when we do have the discussion, is that it always comes up like with that whole strip along Broward Boulevard with the auto repair shops and everything, which is so different than the rest of Sailboat Bend. And I've always questioned whether that shouldn't be a separate district. So, we're talking about the same areas.
Right.
Well, but if you go back to the original plats for the city, that could be a reevaluation of how we even determine districts like Coley Hammock, Victoria Park, Rio Vista. Those are historically plots rather than a formed by the city of Sailboat Bend, which isn't the entire Sailboat Bend district. It's just a portion of it. So again, if you just cut off Broward Boulevard, if that's the simplest solution for us not even having to deal with those projects, because that's at least two of them here.
Well, but Broward Boulevard, if I'm not mistaken, Broward Boulevard is not part of the Sailboat Bend Historic District.
Well,
Except
the police
for,
station.
except for the bump out, which is by the police station. The rest of it comes before this board because of the potential impact it has on Sailboat Bend. So that's why the police station was before us, was because it was that bump out. And I think that there was a couple of other commercial
Yeah, there's a
places
few
right
other
around,
ones.
but generally that corridor is not.
Right, it's not, and that's the issue, is that she came here for review and comment, and that's pretty much all the board can do. They're not subject to to any
Right.
review.
Right.
For that particular one, for the Krishna building today, but the police station was not. That was
Right, because
part
the
of-
police
That's
station's in the
in the
bump out, that's
district.
it,
So
right, exactly.
That whole area there is still, all of the commercial buildings
that-
that you currently see are part of
Right,
this.
but Mr. Bray, that was already addressed, and that suggestion, if that's the area that you're referring to, trust me, I think that this board is very sympathetic to that, because that was addressed last year.
Yeah, it was
And
very-
that was the recommendation that we had, was we think that it should be cut back. That Broward Boulevard should be pushed back, and that it should just be the residential area behind there.
And
The
it failed. I
uproar-
can send you the dates of the meetings if you want to watch them. They're brutal, but go ahead.
No, they're entertaining, I'm sure. But there are a lot of people who feel very strongly about that, and ultimately the recommendation failed. So I can tell you that if that's the segment of Sailboat Bend that you're referring to, that's already been addressed and did not pass. Maybe it's something we need to readdress in the future, but I would do your research before opening up that box, which may or may not have a label of
The
Pandora.
bigger subject was about reviewing the historic districts, not in particular, because as I'm pointing out, Coley Hammock, Victoria Park, Rio Vista all have significant historic architecture that is relevant to the city, and they're not designated. So if we're really going to do a preservation, we should be looking at designated areas within the city that could be done by plots, if that is an avenue to take.
May I just make a suggestion? We did have a few meetings where we went over Tricia's surveys, and some of those properties were included, and there was a lot of resistance to that as well. But again, I'm sorry, I'm just reminding you, because once we go down that path, but Tricia can speak to it, that you had properties in your survey and that there was a lot of pushback, so.
Pushback, that's one way to put it.
Yeah, there are several architectural resource surveys available on our website that identify different neighborhoods and what would be eligible for designation as far as a district is concerned. Typically, a district isn't designated just by a historic plat. It would be based on existing conditions and architectural integrity and overall actual development that's physically seen today. So
There you have
if there was an interest in moving any designation forward, as you know, the Historic Preservation Board does have the authority to initiate a historic designation application.
Let's see how these first few fare out before we start going down that road.
That's it, just a comment.
Sure, understood. All right, any other comments, any other issues, any other things we want to talk about? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn?
So granted. Motion, meeting's adjourned 6:14 PM. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.